hi everyone. I'm Gitte. I'm a physicist and a principal with Boston Consulting Group. BCG is a global management consultancy, and we partner with clients to empower their organizations to grow, to build sustainable competitive advantage, and to drive societal impact. Naturally, future of work is at the center of this. So personally, I work with global retailers and consumer goods companies on large transformations, and especially within digital. But that's not why I'm here today. The reason I am here is that I've been fortunate to be working at some of the first teams at BCG embracing new ways of working. And before the world changed on us, I had the chance to present in Lisbon in front of 1,300 BCG partners from all over the world. And together with one of my great colleagues, we presented how our team had found a new way of working, one that drove higher value, happier clients, and a happier team. In Lisbon, we were totally blown away by the feedback from the audience. I had 200 emails, texts, Slacks. I did not have 1 minute alone. Even in the restroom, people kept coming to me. And you might know BCG partners as quite eager, but in the restroom, really? And what we realized was that these BCG partners representing top companies and CEOs across the world, they all knew we needed to change, but no one had seemed to make the leap. So we got asked to travel the world to tell the same story. And then, of course, COVID happened, and the need for change only got larger. So my aspiration for the day is to make this topic applied, to demystify what future of work and resilience really is, and to hopefully spark ideas for how each of us can help transform our organizations. Let's start with future of work. It did not start with COVID. It's been long underway, and it all starts with impact. Ultimately, what we all want to drive is a positive impact, to change the world for the better. And any small steps or contributions that each of our organizations are driving towards that. So to drive that impact, we look at the problems of tomorrow. And then we combine it with the talent of tomorrow. So future of work is to combine those two forces. And we recognize that both sides are really changing. With the problems, COVID is an excellent example of the nature of challenges we face. Governments are faced now with a complex set of KPIs, not just one to optimize for. It's not just health, not just economy, but also fast change. Marketing is an example. Annual plans used to be the best practice, but now it's much more always on and data driven. And for the talent, as an example, when I started at BCG, I would kill myself for the job and to keep it. Now, fortunately, talents are expecting much more. They want to contribute to a larger purpose, meet the CEO on the first day, and they expect a good work-life balance as well. So future of work is to combine those two forces in the most optimal way to drive more value creation in a more sustainable way. The good news, if I can say so, is that COVID has accelerated this future, and we all feel it. And BCG research with 200,000 global respondents also confirm it. 9 out of 10 people expect to work fully or partially remote after the pandemic. And a majority of us already experience benefits with new digital tools. And we need it. I'd argue with the scarce resources and the challenges the world faces, there is no way without future work. And the benefits are real. We see companies reaching 3 to 4 times customer satisfaction, 30% productivity increase, 20% sales boost, retention improvement, cost reduction, etc. And on an individual level, we also see it. We recently surveyed BCGers in the Nordics where we're undergoing this change ourselves. And already early in the journey, 80% feel that this drives more impact. 60% say that work is more sustainable. And that's massive in a company already known to be high performing. So in this future, those who win are, as Darwin famously claimed, not the strongest, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most adaptable to change. And that is what we call resilience. And interestingly, resilient organizations clearly outperform their competitors, and especially during crisis. Here we look at top performing companies' total shareholder return. And this is a sum of what a stock has returned to those who invested in it, and thus a good measure of an investment's long-term value. And we see that the gap from top to bottom almost doubles in crisis. So some of you might think by now that this is all great, but what does it really mean in practice? Let me try to make that concrete. Well, personally, I love this quote. It says that the winning organizations of the future will be more like jazz, so close to the audience that customer contact is continuous, and as a musician, so close to each other that functional barriers are reduced. Information will be free, flowing, and available to all. We can all hear everything, and we can jam together with full knowledge. You know what's shocking here? It was said in 1990, yet it's still one of the most aspirational pieces I know. The thing is, when we ask companies now, we're not there. We recently asked leaders in the Nordics. 70% say that future work is a popular topic, but that they are not aware of a concrete vision in their company. So we have way to go in describing that future, so we together can move there. At BCD, we claim that future work is not an end destination, and it's not a cookie cutter answer either. Future work is to rethink how we work in a given context and to continue doing so we drive more impact in less time. Let me now explain these 5 pillars with examples so we see how we can achieve that. Step 1 is why we're all here, to drive impact. And with whatever topic you're working on, this starts by having a conversation with your customers and stakeholders on what actually drives value. And then it's about finding the smartest means to an end. The best way to focus on impact is to ensure close and continuous customer contact, just like in jazz leadership. And instead of working on something, then deliver it, and then get feedback, this is about integrating customer feedback continuously from start to end. It means that we co-create, that we share work in progress with each other with full transparency. With external customers like end customers, partners, suppliers, it's of course more important than ever to stay relevant, given the fast pace of change and level of competition. And with internal customers, for instance, if you're in a strategy function or a finance function, users of software and so on, this can really help you take out significant waste and create more ownership in the receiving organization. Let's take 2 examples. In old days, when BCG delivered strategy work, it was mostly driven by the BCG team and mostly handed over in a nice-looking PowerPoint deck. Now, when we talk to clients on what really sets strategy apart, it is less slides and more focus on driving the right answers, with the right ownership in the organization to drive the change, moving faster from insights to action, you can say. Another key thing here is to remove non-value add. And a simple example is meeting agendas. How about crowdsourcing those? Ask people what should be on the agenda. And how about real-time updating and aligning the agenda at the start of the meeting? And how about sharing material in its original form instead of spending time putting, for instance, Excel on slides? Whatever it might be, let's together identify and remove non-value add. So the second step is that once we've settled on the value to unlock, we identify and bring together the capabilities needed to unlock it. Jazz leadership talks about reducing functional barriers. And this is about unlocking the power of diversity of backgrounds, capabilities, perspectives. Here you see an integrated team working on a data-driven pricing transformation. And any normal team chart would look like an hierarchical org structure, but this team is not like that. Here we have pricing experts, finance people, change management gurus, data scientists, and market leaders. And they work fully fluidly together as one team. We consistently break down silos, and we do not talk about labels. It's not like you're a data scientist, so you code, or you're female, so you, or any such thing you may hear. On this team, everyone would say that we delivered much more than the individual parts. And it's because of the fluidity of the team. People grew much larger than their traditional roles. So we all know we should do this, yet it's so easy to prefer to work with those like yourself. And you need more capabilities than you might think. So whenever we face a problem, we need to think carefully about what capabilities are needed. And we need to invite them to the table. And we need to set them all up for success with the same information. Let's take 2 examples. So instead of breaking work into siloed priorities, think about what are the cross-functional priorities and team up those capabilities to run with the task together. like the price test example here. And why not try out a pre-mortem exercise? We recently worked with a client on a strategy, and to prepare the go live, we jointly asked what might fail. Let's imagine that we stand 3 years from now and the strategy was a failure. What could it be caused by? So many things came up in that brainstorm that are crucial to address. So team members so often sit on learnings from previous failures or perspectives from different functions. Get them together right away. So now with all those stellar capabilities, we need a process that unlocks them. And that's step 3. One realization we have had is that there is increasing content uncertainty in what we do. That's a natural part of solving complex problems. But the human brain can really not handle well both content uncertainty and process uncertainty at the same time. So we overinvest in process stability. And it's important that you build learning into any such process. In other words, that you are agile. Here's an example of a process from a team. If you can't join and you have input, you provide it up front, but we don't reschedule meetings. I think we all tend to underestimate the noise it creates to reschedule, not just for those involved in the rescheduling, but for all of us planning to use that meeting for a specific thing in our own process. So there is huge value in very basic things as having clear meeting invite titles, clear agendas, so everyone knows when we plan, prioritize work, when we co-create, and when we review work. Okay, so with step 4, we could have actually spent multiple hours on this because it's so important with culture. And in any team, we'd encourage a conversation on norms. And here's what they look like from a team I'm part of. And we came up with these together. And then we check in every 2 weeks on whether we live up to them and how we can help each other do even better. Let me now double click on my favorite, which is growth mindset. Microsoft is known to have become a learning organization, and a critical ingredient is growth mindset. This is where you focus much more on the development, so the slope of the development, rather than the absolute skill levels. A simple example of what I often hear is that this guy is not good at Excel, so he's not performing. What I then want you to ask is, really, did he have a chance at learning it? Does he want to learn? Is he a fast learner? And if the answers are no and yes, then his performance might be great. Getting better always beats perfection. So you can activate growth mindset in many ways in your teams. I particularly like to set up peer-to-peer feedback, where you team up in pairs and you ask each to share a topic they'd like to learn, and the other to then share back observations and ideas on that topic. So this might all sound easy, but it's actually quite impossible if you don't have psychological safety that we heard Juha just talk about. So you may recall this study from Google where they found that what set their highest performing teams apart, it wasn't the leaders or the individuals on the teams. The one differentiating factor is whether the teams had psychological safety. So psychological safety is the belief that you will not be punished for making a mistake. And without it, people don't take interpersonal risk. So here's an example. It's a Slack conversation in front of a team of 30 people. Sarah had discovered a mistake, one that had already gone to a steering group. And in our culture, at least in the old days, that was a bad thing. Now Sarah is honest and brave, and she openly shares this. And you can see how casually Daniel and I, as the leadership, react to it. Now, we didn't think about it much at the time, but the team has later come back and told us that this was a truly defining moment for our team culture. So we all have leaders who punish mistakes. Let's not be those. Okay, so I hope by now I've convinced all of you that future work is so much more than tools, but they are an important enabler of all of what we just discussed. And that's a final step 5. One of the biggest unlocks we found is to have a real workspace, like Teams or Slack, and not just for communication, but for actual co-creation, where you do work together with work in progress, note-taking, everything openly with each other. New tools actually allow us to work asynchronously, making space for each of us to work when we want or need to. So it's really critical that we don't turn the old days space-time into digital. So as a team, we need to agree on ways of working and digital tool norms together. In most large organizations like BCG, or I'm guessing any of those you come from, things tend to get quite complex. Being in the know, that is having the information, that becomes power. I think we all know the feeling of, oh, had I just known that, I would have delivered so much better. I also myself know the temptation of sometimes keeping information to myself. Am I the only one? It is time that we democratize information. And information is so much more than one might think. It's not just the data sets, it's also who met with who, what was discussed by the coffee machine, what are others working on, and the learnings. Netflix calls this leading through context. And it's amazing to see how much better teams perform when they are in the know. So that's in some concrete examples of how to make future work a reality. These examples were given in the context of cross-functional teams solving problems together. It's of course important that you revisit what the 5 dimensions look like in your context. So now we have addressed why future work and discussed concrete examples. Let's now turn our attention to what this means for you as a leader. In jazz, there is no conductor. So what does the future leader look like? I recently had the chance to crowdsource the answer with 150 leaders across the Nordics, and this is what they answered. Resilient leadership is human. I'm hoping everyone on the call are human, but how do we lead in a more human way? It's such a cliche, but so true and so underestimated. Being human starts with being human to yourself. We tend to get too focused on leading others, that we don't take care of ourselves. Not a long-term solution. Leadership is to unlock human needs. First of all, we need to survive. That means sleep, eat, exercise. Then we need to belong, invest in family and friends, build a network, find role models and mentors. And then we can become. Stay curious, invest in learning every day, charter your growth, find a sense of purpose. And the good news is that these are exactly the same things we need to do when we lead team members. When we lead teams, it's about building leaders, not followers. I was once told by a great mentor of mine to make myself redundant. I remember how shocked I was at the message at the time. It was exactly the opposite thing I have been trying to do. So this is about inspiring a movement with a clear why, a purpose, one that unifies the team around the same direction. Then in traditional days, the leaders would also define the what, the priorities. But now it's time to crowdsource these to align them across the team. And finally, never ever define the how. Let the team do that. It drives much more ownership and better solutions. Because as leaders of increasingly multidisciplinary teams, how would we even know? And the secret to this is trust. This is about being oneself, being authentic. Not one person as a leader and then another person behind closed doors. This also means bringing yourself to work, be inclusive, show vulnerability, ask for feedback. And the result? People around you will feel comfortable challenging you, which ensures that you keep learning and growing as a leader. It cascades down to the full organization, and it's critical to build resilience. When BCG's CEO recently was recognized as #1 CEO by Glassdoor, he was asked for his greatest tip. And Rich said to avoid the CEO bubble. He explains that the bubble naturally forms and gets bigger over time. So you actively need to burst that bubble. Have diverse teams around you, listen and appreciate challenge, and walk the talk. Make sure to promote and recognize those who tell you the truth and not just what you want to hear. All right. Hopefully you feel encouraged that resilient leadership is actually not a mystery. It's about being human. It's time we pivot and discuss how to drive change within organizations so we can make future work a reality. Let's face it, it's hard. You'll meet tons of challenges. Here are examples I hear every day. Do you recognize yourself in any of these? I definitely do. I don't have time is a big one. So the thing is, all these comments are very human, but they are just excuses. To counter them, one needs to be value-led. That means focusing on the benefits, the advantages, what problems will it solve, and audience-centric, actually down to a segment of one. We need to make the why clear for everyone on this journey. We often see, for instance, failed IT implementations where the big message is, this makes sense for our company, we will save money. But then everyone would be, oh yes, but for me, it's quite annoying that I now need to work more. So it's not just about the messaging, it's about designing solutions that actually make for the better for everyone involved. So here are 4 success factors we found in driving this change at scale at BCG and clients. Here it started as innovations on teams. So resilient leadership thus is around creating that space for people to innovate. And space can be a lot of things: psych safety, actual time, incentives, supportive failure, and mental surplus. And then it's about commitment. Our CEO has said that this is #1 priority for the company. But you also need much more approachable people to lead the way. This change is not driven from the top. So the most powerful is to create a movement where you include everyone. These are posters we have in all Nordic offices. And if you know BCG, you will also know that they are surprising in terms of colors, outfits, style. These were not created by marketing. They were created by the actual teams. We're intentionally showcasing a big change. Finally, don't think you can define what future of work looks like and then just roll it out. You actually need to test and learn, to co-create the recipe, to make it relevant and drive ownership. This movement is actually bigger than just future of work. It's really humanizing our company. That's the best thing. You feel it in the vibe, in the mood. You see it in who we recruit, and how we talk, how we dress, how we team, how we drive even more value. So we're coming to an end, and I want to share a final anecdote. Remember that presentation in front of Lisbon with all the BCG partners? I was wearing silver pants and white sneakers. And this is in the context of 1,300 suits in that room. I mean, I wanted to provoke a bit, but I had not anticipated the reaction to my pants. More than 100 people reached out and thanked me for wearing them. It meant a lot to them that you can change status quo, that you can dare to stand out. Even our CEO came over to thank me. So this was way beyond my expectation of the pants. So my learning from this is to think about when and how you can lead the way, do things your way, and stand out when you have a purpose to change. Of course, now the reality is that no one sees my pants on Zoom. If I can just share 3 final remarks with you, what I've learned is that future of work is around authenticity. It's actually a big relief that we can just be ourselves. And as a leader, we need to make ourselves redundant. Building leaders, not followers, is what builds resilience. And my final reflection is that it's so important we dare to challenge status quo. So if you have ideas, speak up, because not a lot of people have the capacity to both work and to change. And please do it now, because we all need it. Thank you all for joining us, and thanks to Marcus and Aalto University for inviting us. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Marcus, now over to you.
Thank you, Gitte. Very inspiring, very important matters that you covered a lot in a short period of time. I'll be selecting a few of the questions, about as many as to which we have time, from the audience. And let's go first with, let's start with this kind of a question. What are the best managed companies? Where do people really love to work? That might be a difficult question, possibly, because companies differ so much from each other. But I guess if you would want to name some global or European-wide companies that are known to have been making great strides and success in that, then please do. If you want to take a stance on that.
It's a really great question, and I think this is one where there is often a difference in what you see in media and then probably the reality behind the curtain. But let me call out some of the examples you often hear from media, at least. It's Netflix is one where you really lead through context that is relevant, very relevant in this case. Then you also have the big tech startups. Spotify was very early to be very agile in their ways of working. Facebook was very early to introduce really cool office setups. And I think all of those companies are putting a new supply-demand balance in the talent market. So we also, as BCG ourselves, we see that we now need to up our game.
And I think when it comes to, for example, Facebook, I think that they are, if I'm not remembering wrong, I think that they have really challenging goals regarding to enable a huge percentage of the work time to be conducted for their office workers from home or distant locations. So they seem to be very or greatly ambitious about how they will manage to work that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Then there's a question whose answer probably would be a really big answer. But if you want to share some nuggets about information about that or take some angle into that, then maybe it wouldn't be a too long answer for this session. The question is that what then to do when trust has been ruined?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think you need to honestly address it, right? If you as a leader, if you're aware that trust has been ruined, you need to address it and talk about it and try to regain that psychological safety. If you've ever had it, try to regain that in the team.
Yeah.
But it is difficult, right? It takes takes one little miss, and then trust is kind of out. So you need to be open, encourage it, and show that you want to lead with a new way, one that is much more honest and vulnerable and wants to be better. Yeah. I don't know
really openly probably to discuss all of the important drivers of those bad outcomes and what has gone wrong and what to learn from that across the organization and how to ensure that there are no misunderstandings and that people understand where the other people are coming from, and because there might be of course there might be fears, there might be also good and understandable drivers to some behavior, which, however, aren't as well understood by the others and the colleagues as the other people have meant. So there are, of course, many aspects to that, but maybe of the general aspects, those are some.
Yeah, and retrospectives are a really good rhythm to have on a team. So every week or every 2 weeks, make sure to get together and discuss what's working well and what's working less well. And then as a leader, it's really important you create a culture where people bring up the challenges. And I try to do that by saying what I'm challenged with or what I find difficult or when I know I've been stressing people out. And creating that culture then gets people to speak.
Yeah. Many used to do formal development discussions, or maybe the same with some other name, or quite the same, like twice per year or 3 times per year. But what I wanted to do is to try to have coaching or similar behaviors that kind of are reminiscent of development discussion type discourse, but much more often than that. That might be one possible way to actually end up in a situation where these negative aspects might find an easier way to surface and an easier channel to surface.
I agree.
Are there some really specific factors that you think should be emphasized when leading the organization's newcomers during these hybrid work times? Of course, a difficult time to come to a typical organization when you may not be able to meet as many people as you'd like, and of course to get to know them enough well to have all of that trust and all of that easy communication. I think it typically would help much, of course, if you have able to have learned them more in a physical setting too.
Yeah, definitely. It's something to really be aware of, as you say. With newcomers, it's really affiliation. So making sure that there is that human touch, that you feel like you know each other. And if there is any way you can meet in person, that still always beats the digital world.
Yeah.
But actually, newcomers have, in our transformation at least, been the easiest group of people, especially if they're younger, because that's just normal for them to work in this way. It's actually much more those that have been here 10 years, 20 years, that are very confident in how they work and don't really see the same need for change. So those are the tricky ones. And then if you go to the top of the companies, the CEOs, they all get it. So it's that middle senior management layer that we need to work on.
Yeah. Very tangible question, and just in case you have some other other small pieces of information that could still complement what you already have said about the coffee machine discussions, which of course can be so indeed such an important informal way of people to get to know each other. How to replace those? There are many ways, and in parts you touched that, but do you have some other something more to add to that still?
Yeah. And again, the easiest is to forget about them, right? So the easiest is to just work. And I see that so many times. You dial into a Zoom meeting and it's work like this. And then you dial out and it's into another one and it's work like that. So that's what you want to avoid. And the way you do it is to set up a rhythm around it. I work with a lot of Swedes, and they have this thing called fika, which you might know in Finland as well, but it's, I think, coffee and cake time. So we have digital versions of that. So we have half an hour scheduled just for that. So people know we just have fun. And if you have time, you dial in. If you don't have to. And we also have very structured Slack workspace. And one of the channels is called Family and Fluff. And this is where we just share family and fluff.
Yeah.
It can be any random thing. So it's kind of the same things as the coffee machine conversations.
And people must have cake at their home to participate. That was a joke.
Yeah, that you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah,